Tiberius. Tiberius started his reign with promise, exhibiting competence and restraint. He was even one of the Roman Empire's most successful generals. However, as his reign progressed, he became increasingly reclusive and paranoid. After the death of his son Drusus in AD 23, Tiberius's behavior took a darker turn. He retreated from Rome to the island of Capri in AD 26, effectively isolating himself from the governance of the empire and leaving administration to his unscrupulous praetorian prefect, Sejanus. The most damning accounts of Tiberius's depravity come from his time on Capri. Suetonius and Tacitus, two prominent ancient historians, describe a host of lurid activities. According to Suetonius, Tiberius created an environment of decadence and perversion, engaging in sexual acts with young boys and girls. He allegedly had a group of young boys, referred to as his minnows, who were trained to swim between his legs and nibble at his genitals while he bathed. Tiberius is also remembered for his cruelty and the violent purges that occurred during his reign. His paranoia led to numerous executions, including those of perceived enemies and members of his own family. The treason trials, Maesta's trials, became a tool for Tiberius to eliminate rivals and dissenters. The writings of Suetonius and Tacitus are primary sources for Tiberius's reign. Both historians were critical of Tiberius, painting a picture of a ruler who succumbed to his basest desires. Suetonius's The 12 Caesars provides detailed and scandalous descriptions of Tiberius's alleged debauchery, while Tacitus's annals depict him as a cruel and paranoid ruler. Their works, however, while invaluable historical sources, are also colored by their personal and political biases, as well as their desire to entertain and engage their readers. Nero. Nero was the fifth Roman emperor and is infamous for his hedonism and depravity. His reign, documented by historians like Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio, was marked by extravagance, cruelty, and scandal. Nero indulged in excessive spending on luxurious public works, banquets, and entertainment. He hosted lavish games, theatrical performances, and musical competitions, often participating himself, actions considered highly inappropriate for an emperor. Rather than use this power to rule or even conquer new lands, Nero dreamed of being an artist, cheered by an adoring public. He forced people to watch his performances, without letting them leave. This, Suetonius wrote, led some to pretend they had died so they would be carried out of the theater. His cruelty knew no bounds. He ordered the murders of his mother, Agrippina the Younger, his first wife, Octavia, and his tutor, the philosopher Seneca. His persecution of Christians, especially after the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64, where he used them as scapegoats, further solidified his reputation. The Great Fire of Rome is one of the most infamous episodes of his reign. Tacitus and Suetonius allege that Nero either started the fire or allowed it to burn while he played the lyre and sang about the destruction of Troy. This narrative of Nero's callousness during the disaster has endured, contributing to his image as a depraved ruler. Nero's personal life was marked by numerous sexual scandals and excesses. He had numerous affairs with both men and women and engaged in incestuous relationships. Suetonius describes instances of Nero's sexual depravity, including his marriage to a freedman named Pythagoras, in which Nero played the bride. His reign saw an increase in political purges and executions. He frequently used charges of treason to eliminate rivals and dissenters, creating an atmosphere of fear and repression. His arbitrary and tyrannical rule alienated the Roman elite and the general populace, cementing his reputation for depravity and despotism. Caligula. Caligula was the third Roman emperor, ruling from 37 to 41 AD. His short rule was marked by a series of bizarre, cruel, and extravagant acts that shocked his contemporaries. Caligula's early rule began with promise. He was the beloved son of Germanicus, a highly respected general, and was initially welcomed by the Roman populace. However, after a severe illness in 37 AD, Caligula's behavior changed dramatically, becoming increasingly erratic and despotic. This sudden descent into madness and cruelty created a sharp contrast that has been deeply etched into historical accounts. He squandered vast sums of money on lavish games, public spectacles, and personal luxuries. Caligula's extravagance was exemplified by his commissioning of extravagant ships, known as the Nemi ships, which were floating palaces complete with marble floors and elaborate decorations. His spending depleted the Roman treasury, necessitating heavy taxation and confiscation of property, further alienating the populace and the Senate. One of the most shocking aspects of Caligula's reign was his apparent belief in his own divinity. He demanded to be worshipped as a living god and ordered the erection of statues in his likeness throughout the empire, even in places of worship dedicated to other gods. Caligula's insistence on being treated as a deity was seen as blasphemous and deeply offensive to Roman religious traditions and further alienated him from the Senate and the Roman people. Caligula's sexual exploits and perversions are among the most notorious aspects of his reign. According to Suetonius, he engaged in numerous affairs with married women, including the wives of his allies, and even with his own sisters, whom he reportedly prostituted to other men. His open and scandalous sexual behavior shocked Roman society. He also had an insatiable bloodthirst, killing for mere amusement. He was known for his arbitrary and sadistic punishments, often delighting in the suffering of others, including Roman senators. One of the most infamous stories involves his purported plan to make his horse, Incitatus, a consul, which, whether true or exaggerated, symbolized his contempt for Roman political institutions and his descent into madness. Caligula's execution of political rivals, including prominent senators and wealthy citizens, created an atmosphere of fear and terror throughout Rome. His reign came to an abrupt end when he was assassinated by members of the Praetorian Guard, along with conspirators from the Senate and his own court. His assassination was followed by a purge of his supporters and the destruction of his statues and images, a clear indication of the relief and anger felt by many at his death. Elagabalus. Elagabalus, also known as Heliogabalus, was Roman emperor from 218 to 222 AD. His reign, though brief, is notorious for its extravagant and hedonistic excesses, as well as his unconventional behavior and disregard for Roman traditions. The primary sources for Elagabalus's life and reign, such as the writings of Cassius Dio, Herodian, and the Historia Augusta, paint a picture of an emperor whose actions shocked and scandalized his contemporaries. Elagabalus's deep devotion to the Syrian sun god Elagabal, from whom he took his name, was one of the most distinctive and controversial aspects of his reign. He attempted to replace the traditional Roman pantheon with the worship of Elagabal, even going so far as to build a lavish temple for the god on the Palatine Hill and placing a black stone, believed to be a meteorite and a symbol of Elagabal, at its center. Elagabalus's efforts to impose his religious beliefs on Rome included marrying a Vestal virgin, which was considered a sacrilege. These actions were deeply offensive to the Roman religious sensibilities and traditionalists. Elagabalus was known for his extreme extravagance and decadent lifestyle. He spent vast sums of money on lavish banquets, exotic animals, and luxurious clothing. According to the Historia Augusta, he would often serve elaborate feasts with rare and expensive dishes, such as the brains of peacocks and flamingos, the tongues of nightingales, and the livers of pike. His penchant for luxury extended to his personal appearance, as he would wear elaborate and effeminate clothing, use cosmetics, and even depilate his body. His extravagance drained the imperial treasury and alienated many of his subjects. Elagabalus's sexual behavior was another source of scandal and infamy. He was openly bisexual and is reported to have had numerous male and female lovers. He is said to have married his chariot driver, a slave named Hierocles, and insisted on being called his wife. He also reportedly engaged in cross-dressing and appeared in public dressed as a woman, which shocked the conservative Roman society. Elagabalus's reign was also marked by political ineptitude and manipulation. He was placed on the throne at the age of 14 through the machinations of his grandmother, Julia Maesa, who sought to restore the Severan dynasty to power. Once emperor, Elagabalus showed little interest in governance, preferring to indulge in personal pleasures. Real power often rested with his grandmother and his mother, Julia Soaemias. Commodus. The final Roman emperor, often regarded as hedonistic and depraved, is Commodus, who ruled from AD 180 to 192. His reign is widely documented for its excesses, cruelty, and erratic behavior. Commodus indulged in a lavish lifestyle marked by extravagant banquets, games, and entertainments. He spent vast sums of money on luxuries and personal pleasures, often neglecting his imperial duties. His obsession with personal gratification led to financial strain on the empire's resources, exacerbating economic difficulties. One of the most notorious aspects of Commodus's reign was his participation in gladiatorial games. He fancied himself a great gladiator and fought in the arena, which was considered highly inappropriate for an emperor. Commodus's performances were often staged, with opponents who were either weakened or fighting under duress, ensuring his victories. These public displays were seen as a degradation of the emperor's dignity and the imperial office. Commodus's sense of self-importance and megalomania were evident in his attempts to deify himself. He renamed Rome to Colonia Commodiana and styled himself as the reincarnation of Hercules, even appearing in public dressed as the demigod. Statues and coins were issued depicting him as Hercules, further emphasizing his delusions of grandeur. Commodus's reign was marked by extreme cruelty and brutality. He ordered the execution of many prominent Romans, including senators and members of his own family, often on the slightest suspicion of disloyalty. His purges created an atmosphere of fear and instability in Rome. He enjoyed watching executions and tortures, displaying a sadistic streak that alarmed and alienated his contemporaries. Commodus showed little interest in the responsibilities of ruling the empire. He delegated important duties to corrupt and incompetent officials, preferring to focus on his personal pleasures and entertainments. His neglect of governance led to political and administrative chaos, which ended up weakening the empire's stability.